But oftentimes, the industry says they've gone through digital transformation, and that means a lot of things to a lot of people, right? And that's a very broad topic. But the question I always have to people is, what comes after digital transformation? Just because you've digitized the paper, or you've screen scraped off the information, or you put it into a database or a record of a system of record, what do you do with it? How do you make the process adjustments? How do you simplify the mortgage process? So to me, that is the next generation of digital, saying what comes after this? Because we've invested a huge amount of money, but being digital is just the entry fee. What happens when you compete in a comprehensively digital industry, but you don't have the culture, you don't have the constant innovation mindset, you don't have, your innovation is not put into building blocks where things can be replaced easily. And oftentimes we think of everything as a serialized app, a loan origination or a servicing system or an underwriting system or an AVM system. I mean, everybody kind of looks at these things as one-offs, but they are going to all have to be iterative, and they're building blocks, and you restack them. That is how you're going to actually make, in my mind, a complete competitive differentiation. Just because you buy a loan origination system and some consultant comes in and says, we'll help you install it, is that a uniquely differentiable type of solution when it comes to your customers? If you put your customers in the center, as you and I have talked many times, how is that going to be any different than your competitor when everything is then going to be viewed as a commodity offering?
You and I are going to both be down in Nashville in just a few weeks, and we're already hearing some of that in the discussions about API ecosystems, right? Mm-hmm. So they're getting to the point where the platforms are digital enough that connections can be easier. And now the question is, but connect to what? All right.
Well, exactly. And how do you maintain that data integrity and linkages and data sovereignty, the restrictions, the privacy rights that are coming with it, the customer-driven rights that maybe only give you access to the, let's say, your W-2 information for a period of 48 hours. And you have to not record what's on the W-2, but you verify generally what was on there. And that is put as the mortgage system of record, not necessarily the form itself. There are pointers back to the original form that the customer controls, which is a highly secure, maybe blockchain on or off driven type of approach. But it changes the dynamic of saying, we used to focus everything on the application, the system, the technology. But the real challenge and the real way of how we do it digital, how we maintain our competitive advantage, at the same time not reworking every time we want to get an application, is we have to make sure that the data is isolated, what we used to call data isolation modules back in the day. And those are coming back in vogue, saying, how do I make sure that those are consistent on a customer by customer? Because that is far more important than the application itself.
Yeah. Now, Mark, what impact will cloud-based software have on that? I've talked to so many technology vendors who are pushing everything up into the cloud. Partly, they're telling me for those data privacy and data security issues. Is that the answer to that? Will it basically be the problem of the tech vendor instead of the lender?
I do not think so. Cloud is, to me, when I look at it, what I'm talking about, it's an enabler to shorten the provisioning time for the systems, where an LOS could have taken 6 to 24 months, depending on who you were putting in and the complexity of it. Putting it into the cloud and doing a cloud provisioning is great because I can get to it. Many people can get to it. It's not locked into my infrastructure. I don't have the capital costs associated with it, all those wonderful things. But the ability to get to that data, the underlying building blocks of that data on a customer by customer, form by form, system of record type of thing that actually backs up the application, or in this case, how do you get to that? You can put it in the cloud all you want, and you can use an Amazon or a Snowflake or somebody to get to it, but it still doesn't make it usable. And that's the different approaches. Just because I have it there doesn't mean that it's usable. I still have to have a cloud system to tap into it. I still have to have all the security checks. I still have to make sure that the information wasn't garbage going in. How do I verify that? And if I go from system to system and vendor to vendor, more than likely what you're doing is just copying cloud data from point A to point B on a different application. They're not playing in the same sandbox. And if you look at some of the things that some of the more larger vendors like ICE is trying to do, if you're going to do any kind of a straight through processing, a short through, or STP, we used to call in the equities world, to actually shorten the mortgage, servicing, underwriting, closing, customer contact, all those wonderful things, then you have to have consistent data. That's how the equities world does it. It's not necessarily about the application, it's access to the information and the reuse of that information, because the more data I can reuse, the more I can drive down cost. If I can't reuse data, my costs go through the roof. And I don't care if you're a cloud vendor or not, you're just going to pay on a virtual basis.
Mark, this is going to make some great conversations down in Nashville. I can't wait to talk to some of the people about what they're thinking comes next after the road to digital is complete. So, all right, we'll have another show. We'll have another show shortly. We'll talk about more things they should be talking about in Nashville and in all the conferences this fall.